The Campaign for Independence, 1922 to 1935. The Campaign for Independence in the Philippines from 1922 to 1935, it highlights the movement's diverse strategies, including political activism, diplomatic negotiations, and grassroots organizing, all aimed at securing sovereignty and self-governance for the nation. President Warren G. Harding sent an investigating mission to the Philippines to determine whether or not the Filipinos were prepared for independence, one of which was General Leonardo Wood, was appointed. He believed that appointing Americans to key positions would ensure greater efficiency, stability, and control over the colonial administration, especially amid growing tension and resistance movement in the country. Two of the most prominent leadership rivalry in the Philippines were Sergio Osmeña and Manuel L. Quezon. Both played a part during the campaign for independence, with each of different ideologies. Osmeña was often perceived as more conservative in his political ideology, while Quezon, on the other hand, was considered more progressive and assertive in his political ideologies. The mission arrived in Manila on May 4, 1921. President Harding appointed General Leonardo Wood and former Governor General William Cameron Forbes to make a survey on the true condition of the country. The report also stated that most of the Christian Filipinos were for independence, but non-Christian were for continued American occupation. To the Filipinos, the report was due to Parisian politics, but as a whole, the findings of the mission were fairly accurate, no matter how critical it was. So the Wood-Forbes mission is a combined name for William Cameron Forbes and General Leonardo Wood. Maximo Calao played a significant role in the Wood-Forbes mission in the Philippines, while he serves as an interpreter and a translator. For he who was fluent in English, Spanish, and several Philippine languages. When Leonardo Wood assumed the position of Governor General of the Philippines in 1921, several significant events occurred. Wood implemented policies characterized by fairness and efficiency. He aimed to strengthen American control over the Philippines and enhance the efficiency of colonial administration. Wood as well focused on promoting economic development and modernization in the Philippines. During Wood's tenure, the Wood-Forbes mission was initiated in 1922. This mission aimed to assess the Philippines' readiness for self-governance and make recommendations for future governance arrangements. Then the political opposition. Wood faced opposition from Filipino nationalist leaders such as Manuel L. Quezon and Sergio Osmeña, who advocated for greater autonomy and eventual independence for the Philippines. They criticized Wood's policy as undemocratic and oppressive.
Hello everyone, this is Reniel M. Gimbaan. For my topic is the conflict between Quezon and Osmeña, the cabinet crisis, and the other conflict with Wood. So the conflict between Quezon and Osmeña. The main conflict between Quezon and Osmeña stemmed from their differing views on political leadership and other distribution within the Filipino government. Initially, Osmeña held significant influence as Speaker of the House, with Tarf even ranking him second only to the Governor General. When Quezon nahimong Senate President, nagtuo siya nga ang Senate leadership should ma-outrank ang House Speaker in Filipino government affairs. This difference in perspective led Quezon to challenged Osmania leadership. In 1921, he believed that this is the time to challenge and accusing him of being dictatorial and taking credit for collective efforts. Second, form of collectivist group advocating for collective leadership while Osmania led the Unipersonalistas supporting single-person leadership. The conflict culminated in 1922 elections where Quezon collectivistas gained more seats. However, to avoid further divisions, Quezon and Osmeña reconciled and merged their parties for the 1925 elections, with Quezon ultimately succeeding Osmeña as the main political leader of the Filipinos. So my second topic is the cabinet crisis. Governor Wood policy where he exercised all powers as Governor General per the Jones Law faced strong oppositions from Filipino leaders. These oppositions grew when Wood diverged from Harrison policy of granting more Filipino participation in government. In 1923, a dispute arose between Manuel L. Quezon, a prominent leader, and Governor Wood over an American detective, Ray Conley, accusing him of bravery and immorality. Despite Conley innocent, would order his reinstatement, leading to political tensions. Quezon capitalized on his criticizing Wood as anti-Filipino and accusing him as excessive interference. This controversy led to mass resignations among Filipinos officials, highlighting the strained relationship between Wood and Filipino leaders. So last, the other conflict with Wood. Governor Wood, although competent and honest, had a formal and rigid demeanor. His efforts to reclaim Governor General powers led to conflict with Filipino leaders like Quezon and Osmeña. One point of contention was a board of control case where Wood opposed Filipino members' influence. He also faced criticism for using his veto power excessively, which was seen as obstructing Filipino interests. Despite protests to President College, Wood instance prevailed until his death in 1927, marking the end of the conflict with Filipino leaders.
Post-Jones Law, peaceful campaigns for Philippine independence ensued, despite efforts through independence commissions and missions to the U.S. between 1918 and 1930, including the Independence Congress legislative success, were thwarted by opposition, notably from American business interests. The failure of the independence mission to achieve their purpose did not dishearten the Filipino leaders. In 1931, through the recommendation of Quezon, another independence mission was sent to the United States. It was headed by Senator Sergio S. Osmeña and Speaker Manuel A. Rojas. It is called the Ozarks Mission. This time, there were American groups that were in favor for the Philippine independence. The first one was the American Farm Group, which they believe that Philippine agricultural products are entering the United States free of duty, competing with American farm products. To eliminate this competition, the American farm groups lobbied for Philippine independence. Second group are the American labor leaders. They believed that Filipino laborers were entering the United States without any restriction and also competing with American laborers because Filipino laborers accepting low wages driving out American laborers. The third group that favored Philippine independence was the isolationist. These Americans believed that if the Philippines were given independence, the United States would not have to go war with Japan at the time. All these groups helped the Ozrocks mission and its campaign for independence. As the result of the intensive campaign of the Ozrocks mission, the U.S. Congress passed the Hair Horse Cutting Act. This law provided that at the end of a 10-year period, to be named as the Commonwealth period, Philippine independence would be granted. The law also provided that 50 Filipino immigrants would be allowed to enter the United States every year for a period of 10 years. Some Philippine products like sugar, oil, abaca, and other fibers were to enter the United States in limited quantities, while U.S. products were allowed free entry to the Philippines. The bill also authorized the United States to retain land or other properties designated by the President of the United States for military and other reservations. President Herbert Hoover vetoed the Hair Horse Cutting Act, but the Congress overturned his veto and passed the bill into law. The Quezon Mission. When Quezon was informed about the passage of the Hair Horse Cutting Law, he obliged to work against its approval by the legislature, because he believed that this was disadvantageous to the Filipinos. Quezon went to the United States to get another law, but passing this new law was ill or nothing or insignificant. Faced with embarrassment, he worked with Senator Tydings and Representative John McDuffie to understand and make minor changes in the hair horse cutting law, which resulted to Tydings-McDuffie Act. With one revision, the retention of naval reservation and fueling stations instead of retention of military and other reservations. So why did Quezon object the hair horse cutting law? The popular reason was Quezon feared that if he allowed the acceptance of the hair horse cutting law, which was the fruit of Osmeña and Rojas' labor, this would be disadvantageous for him if he were to run as the president of the Commonwealth. He did not want this to happen. He wanted to remain the leader of the Filipino people, and so he worked for the rejection of the hair horse cutting law. The limelight would be his as one who secured the Philippine independence from the Americans, for which the Filipino would be grateful for. But closer scrutiny would reveal that there were also a serious reason the Tydings-McDuffie Act removed the retention of U.S. military bases on the Philippine soil. Framing the Constitution. The Tydings-McDuffie Act mandated the creation of a constitution for Commonwealth government in the Philippines. The Constitutional Convention began in 1934, led by Claro M. Recto. However, American requirements limited to delegates' freedom, including ensuring civil rights for the Americans and mandating U.S. control over foreign affairs and currency. Despite these restrictions, the convention approved a constitution on February 8, 1935 by President Roosevelt, accepted it on March 23, 1935. The Filipino people endorsed it in the plebiscite on May 14, 1935, and the Commonwealth was inaugurated on June 16 the same year with the President Manuel L. Quezon. Let's give credits to the women who have a significant role for our country's independence. The courage and heroism of Gabriela Silang, the women of Malolos, and the women of Katipunan, and the 1896 revolution like Georgia de Jesus, Teresa Magbanwa, Tandang Sora, Trinidad Texon, and many more persisted till the American period in 1902. Clemencia Lopez appealed for Philippine independence while studying in the United States. Filipino women, despite the American attempts to convert outwardly feminine and modest Maria Claras into carnival queens, qualified as U.S. scholars or pensionadas. A sad note in this vibrant and successful era of women was the postponement of women's suffrage, which was a provision in 1935 Constitution. They had to wait after the establishment of the Commonwealth government, and therefore the women once again who displayed the vigor and national spirit of old garnered more than the required votes in a plebiscite with nearly 500,000 votes. The women's suffrage law was finally signed by President Quezon on September 15, 1937, after 3 decades of steadfast struggle with substantial gains.
Back when America was in charge of the Philippines from 1898 to 1935, they made some big changes that affected how people live. Today, we're going to talk about the impacts of American rule from 1898 to 1935. One of the impacts is education and the school system. When the Americans came, they set up schools that everyone could go to, no matter who they were. These schools taught things like being a good citizen and working together. They kept religion separate from the school so everyone could learn freely. American soldiers and teachers called Thomasites helped teach people. More Filipinos learned to read and write, and some even got go to school for more schooling. Next is public health and welfare. Before the Americans, many people got sick from bad diseases because there wasn't good health care. The Americans changed that by teaching people how to stay clean and setting up hospitals. They also showed people how to eat better, which made everyone healthier and stronger. Less people got sick, which was a big improvement.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the improvement in trade and industry, so the free trade relations between the Philippines and the United States led to artificial prosperity. Free trade relations meant that Filipino products entering the United States were not taxed, and the American products entering the Philippines were likewise free of duty. As a result of these free trade relations, Philippine exports to the United States increased. So sa year 1909, ang exports sa Philippines niabot og 60.9 million pesos. Pagka 1910 to 1914, nisaka og 94.7 million pesos. And pagka 1914 to 1918, mas nidako pa og samot to 177.3 million pesos. And sa year 1925 to 1930, niabot na jud siya og 297.9 million pesos. So, ang Philippines is sa una nag-enjoy ng favorable balance of trade, which means mas dako ang value sa atong exports kaysa sa imports. So, ang Philippines at times sa American gani progress jud kay daghan naman ang na-establish ng mga factories like coconut oil mills, cigar and cigarette factories, rope factories, fishing and fish canning, alcohol distilleries ug sugar centrals. Ang tungod ani daghan pud nga hire nga mga trabahante nga Pinoy and bisan gamay ang capital sa una, ni-invest gyapon sila sa industry. Lastly, nahimo importante ang mining ani nga time, and sa year 1929 nagka-produce og mga gold mining almost 7 million pesos worth of gold, and sa year 1935 ni-increase na ang production, which is niabot og 32 million pesos worth of gold. For transportation and communication, alongside the improvements in health and sanitation, the Americans also improved the various means of transportation and communication. In 1898, when Spain was ousted from the Philippines by the Filipinos, the Philippines had less than 2,000 kilometers of road. The land was increased to more than 20,000 kilometers when the Commonwealth was inaugurated. During the Spanish period, ang mga tulay og imbornal or culvert in English kay less than 3,000 na lang, and then pagkaabot 1935 niabot og 8,000. So sa year 1903, ang mga railway pud sa una kay less than 200 kilometers ra. Then pag-abot og year 1935, nahimo ng 1,000 kilometers. Nasa sila ginatawag nga the Manila-Dagupan Railway. Founded ni siya during sa Spanish period, o niya gi-own sa government, nahimong Manila Railroad Company. So kay nang improve naman na nga time, gipa-expand nila ang railway padulong sa province sa Northern and Southern Luzon. So for democracy and civil liberties, President McKinley's principles of American policy toward the Philippines were rooted in the recognition of human rights as a foundation of any democratic system. In contrast, the Spanish regime did not recognize the practice and the value of equality and freedom. The American regime recognized the equality of men before the law and the right of every man to all freedoms, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to complain, and freedom to change one's domicile. So, ang mga American wala gi-introduce kung unsa ang democracy sa mga Filipinos. Pero ang mga Filipinos sa una kabalo na unsa na before pa niabot ang Americans o si Spaniards. Tungod sa mga revolts o uprising against sa Spain o sa away sa American, dahil makita nga gusto gyud ang mga tao og freedom from foreign control. So, ang the Malolos Constitution nag-provide og Bill of Rights nga gi-recognize ang human dignity og freedom. And lastly is political parties. When the Americans colonized the Philippines, they introduced many American institutions. One of these was the system of political parties and elections, the municipal election, the provincial elections, and finally the national elections. First held in 1907 to elect the delegates to the Philippine Assembly, resulted in the formation of political parties among the Filipinos. So, after sa American occupation, nag-exist na ang mga political parties sa Philippines. Kani nga mga parties na ginatawag nga political platform which is na-learn sa mga Filipinos sa Americans. Thus, ang Federal Party nasad sila definite platform. On the other hand, ang Nationalista Party na ay platform opposite sa Federal Party nga immediate and absolute independence for the Philippines. So kay sa Americans man nato na learn ang about sa political party system, pati sa dang ilang bad characteristic na po sa Filipinos. Unyang resulta ni kay nag-increase of government machinery and government affairs by wealthy and educated Filipinos. This type of politics ironically was deepened during the time of Governor General Harrison when more Filipinos came to control the lawmaking body and government bureaucracy.
English language and literature is one of the long-lasting influences of the Americans in the Philippines. Before, McKinley ordered that English language dapat mahimong medium of instruction in all public schools. Sa 10 years na pamamalagi ng Americans here sa Philippines, naanapodayo yung mga Filipinos na nag-start og write in English. Silang Juan Salazar, Maximo Calao, Francisco Africa, Justo Juliano o Bernardo Garcia. They wrote poems, essays, and stories. With the teaching of English language, American culture becomes popular here in the Philippines. By 1935, daghan sa mga Filipino writers in English nagdistinguish silang self sa poetry, short stories, and essay, and ang uban pod gasulat og dramas and novels. Some of the poems and short story of Filipino writers in English kay na-publish in US. Tungod aning contact between Filipinos and English language, nagkaroon ng adoption of English words and phrases in the major of Filipino language, like football, basketball, foul, and boxing, and many more. Up to this day, English words and phrases ginatake into Tagalog. With that, nagrise ang Taglish or Ingalog, a combination words of Tagalog and English. Negative results of American rule. American occupation of the Philippines was far from heavenly, na ay mga negative outcomes of the colonization nga gakakita nato hantod ron. Yes, tinuod nga ang free trade relation between the Philippines and the US nagresult siya sa development of commerce, trade, industry, transportation, and communication. But Philippines become exclusively dependent on the US to continue prosper economically. Dili siya favorable because instead nga mag-develop og exports for trade sa ubang countries outside the US, nag-rely too much ang Philippines sa American market and it made Filipinos helpless economically. The Americans is the major trading partner of the Philippines and they had the upper hand nga mag-dictate sa prices of the Philippines commodities. They also told Filipinos what to do or not, and with that there was no real industrialization hands of Filipino capital. Another seen ill effect of Americans here in the Philippines is the brainwashing of Filipino to the educational system. Kay tungod ang Americans kabuot sa educational policies of the Filipinos, ang mga subjects nga ginatake sa school kay more on American culture and history kaysa sa Philippine culture and history. Pupils and students learn more about Washington, Santa Claus, and uban pang American heroes, subjects, and objects. Ang pag-learn sa Filipino heroes and heroines like Rizal and others is murag wala na lang before. This kind of education before nag-influence jud sa mga Filipino students to admire everything nga gikan sa United States. Daghan sad sa ila kina-prefer ang stateside and mao na atong ginatawag nga colonial mentality. Another, Filipinos learn to appreciate the American food like hamburger and more. And dalimtan na nato our own delicacies such as puto, suman, matamis sa bao or ginaok ug daghan pa. Ang uban ana pagyud dili na gyud siya present sa ato ang generation. Another ill effect is that kana bitang attitude nato nga gabase ta sa material na butang nga naa sa usa ka tao, like gina-judge nato nga okay ni na tao kung naay nindot na balay, na mga latest model of car, ref, phone, TV or uban pa kaysa sa ilang mga batasan. Tas tungod ani bisan honest pa ka na tao or hardworking ka ug wala ka ani na mga butang, dili jud ka ma-appreciate ug maignan pa kag malas na tao. Kanina materialistic outlook has replaced the sense of community with a focus on individualism and consumerism, impacting Filipino society's values and priorities.